Hey everybody, it's Lori Herman, and I'm here today with Jim with Caleb and Brown down in Australia again today. Thanks, Jim, for joining me.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and I know it's been a minute since we talked. I think last time I was out in Sundance, actually, skiing. I was just sharing with with Jim, you guys, that I've got a screenshot today from CoinMarketCap, and it shows we're at 87,000 and some change, going up and down a little bit. But then when I got in, if you can see over my shoulder, 6,900 was Bitcoin's price back March 5 years ago. And that's when I got involved. I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday who had been talking to her about crypto since last fall. And I told her, I said, I know there's going to be people that are going to be hitting me up in a year when Bitcoin's at 250 or whatever. Not financial advice, you guys, but it's just, you can see where it started. 6,900 and now we're at 87,000. It's gone up to 109. So again, I want to shoot this out, Jim, for people who are just new to the industry, don't know anything. People I constantly am hearing, I don't know where to start. So I sent her over to you guys yesterday. So she'll be opening an account so she can go and buy some crypto. But I just, again, it's not financial advice, but I want people are so confused by it. She was like, oh, my friend sent me a book. And I'm like, by the time you read the book, it's going to be 3 to 6 months. You're going to be like behind the eight ball. Just go put some money in. And she's like, okay, I'm going to put $500 in. And I'm like, that's great. Just put it in. It's not your rent money. It's not your car payment or insurance or what have you. But do you want to share a little bit? What are you seeing this week or this month? And again, for people who are just kind of new to this, we know there's been going a lot of ups and downs, but what are you seeing from people who are buying every day and selling with you guys?
Yeah, so firstly, thanks for having me on. I'm working Caleb and Brown, so we help our clients invest in crypto, provide a safe manner to do so. But part of what we do is we educate our clients about this asset class as well, because you're exactly right. It's quite a technical and can be a confusing asset class. It's quite volatile as well. So it's not like buying shares where, a 5% change in the value is a big day. We can see upswings upwards of 15%, 20%. It's not common, but it does happen. Certainly what we're seeing right now, and as you can see through Laurie's background, Bitcoin's at about 87,000 right now. It's had a bit of a dip from the all-time highs we saw maybe about 2 months ago. So it got up to, I think, about 108,000 Bitcoin per Bitcoin. So it's come down a little bit. But what we're seeing on our end is that people are still very interested in getting involved in this asset class. One of the biggest catalysts we're seeing that is incredibly favorable for this space is that now there's a pro crypto viewpoint through the government lens within the US. Now the US is the leader when it comes to tech innovation, but definitely when it comes to crypto support, it's really favorable if the US is starting to propose new legislation, start to think more about regulation, actually provide their support for funding and things of that nature, support crypto businesses as opposed to try and get rid of them. So what we're seeing internally is that from an institutional and government support level, crypto's never been in a better place. We've got a crypto czar now in David Sachs. Just under a month ago, the US government now has a strategic Bitcoin reserve where they're holding Bitcoin as part of their balance sheet, right? If you'd said that to me a year ago, I would have thought you're crazy. So things are really developing fast and it's really beneficial for the space. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that's always going to be impacting the price, right? Unfortunately, there still is a risk on assets. So when there are things like tariffs or we're seeing geopolitical tensions overseas, assets like crypto still get impacted. And we wish they weren't so impacted by the trade fight space, but they still are. So there are a range of impacts and things that are happening daily, weekly in this space. And that's where it's really valuable to have a broker like you would at Caleb & Brown that you can speak to stay informed in this space. But certainly, as Laurie's mentioning, it's definitely a great time to get involved and get started, even if it's just a $500 investment and then you start to learn more about the space. It's really definitely one of those things where you're never going to be able to time the market, but it's timing in the market. You want to have exposure to this asset class, especially if you're someone that is listening to this and you've got an investment portfolio in shares. Maybe you have property investment. This is just another asset class to get exposure to and to diversify your investment. So that's what's happening currently, but happy to dive into more details if you want.
And that's what I was sharing with her name is Lori yesterday. I'm like, I wouldn't have been able to fix up an antique car. I wouldn't have been able to buy $1 million property where I live. I wouldn't have been able to do some of these other things that hobbyists can kind of do, because I consider myself a hobbyist. And I love cryptocurrency when I started learning about it 5 years ago. But it was my brother, he didn't understand that you couldn't buy just a fraction of a Bitcoin. And that's why, I want people to just get some tips why we're talking about this. You can buy just a fraction of a Bitcoin, so I have some Bitcoin, but then I have tens of thousands, if not more than 50,000 and some other coins, so it's like, you can get just a little bit. And that's the thing is, I feel that once you start buying some crypto, that's what I told her yesterday, Lori. I'm like, once you start having some, then you're going to start, your ears are going to be more listening to when people are talking about cryptocurrency or talking about Bitcoin, or you're going to hear it on the news, or you're going to hear it at different places, and you're going to get educated. And I'm always like, look back in 90 days and see if you like doing it, save your dinner money and go buy some cryptocurrency so that you can buy a really pretty dress for an event in a year or something. It's just, you can do it where you wouldn't necessarily be able to make an investment with one of these other things that I'm talking about, or going and learning about stocks and trying to figure all of that out. You can buy just small amounts. $500 isn't necessarily small to some people. But I feel that once you start having a place to put your money and you can see it growing, meaning putting it into crypto and seeing it growing, you're like, I have an extra $100 this month or this week. You trust me, that it gets so addictive. That's what happened to me, at least. I caught the bug. So do you want to talk? I had wrote down a couple things here just as I'm listening to some of the influencers that I listen to. And I know a lot of people that are on here today aren't familiar with it. What is, for example, an ETF?
Yeah, so an ETF is a way, and again, speaking to more the institutional side of things and how now institutions are getting involved in crypto, an ETF in relation to the Bitcoin ETF or the Ethereum ETF is a way to invest in crypto, but done through the traditional finance method. So instead of actually buying the Bitcoin or Ethereum yourself, you could invest through this ETF. And what this ETF is like a share. You get a share into this ETF, and it's the same as holding a Bitcoin, but all of the payment processes and the way that the things would get done on the back end is handed over to this ETF. These institutions and financial institutions that would do it for you. So it's a way to get exposure to Bitcoin and Ethereum without actually having the asset yourself. Now there is a bunch of management costs and sell costs and everything that's involved with usually how you would go through shares. So if people are comfortable, we usually recommend just buying the asset yourself, and that's where we can assist. But if you're someone that goes through, maybe you have your own share broker, maybe you have a portfolio with them, they now have the ability. So traditional finance managers have the ability now to purchase into this ETF, which is the exact same as really just purchasing the Bitcoin or Ethereum yourself. So that's been a really big development. The Bitcoin ETF launched, I think it was around this time last year. Again, a very big development for this space. And what it allowed for was not only retail people like yourself and I to get involved, but it allowed for really large institutions and banks, huge companies all around the world to actually get exposure to Bitcoin and put it on their balance sheet through a more easy means through an ETF. So that is what we mean when we talk about investing through an ETF. Mm-hmm. Again, I think if you factored in the management costs, the sell costs involved with it, it's probably worth doing your due diligence on whether it's actually just easier to buy the asset yourself. Yep. But again, you mentioned it before, and it is a common misconception that, okay, Bitcoin's at 87,000 right now. Do I need to have $87,000 to invest in one Bitcoin? You don't. So you can buy a very small portion of any asset. So if you want to buy $500 of Bitcoin, that's fine. You would just own 0.00, whatever the denomination is of Bitcoin. So I think sometimes that gets a little lost, that you don't need to have a really large amount of money to get started.
Oh, yeah.
And the other thing as well is there are so many assets out here, right? It's gone are the days where it used to be 3 or 4 crypto assets. It was Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum. Now there's thousands getting created every day. So there's a lot of noise out there as well. So it's really important to get that education and understanding of what are the main assets, what interests me, and yeah, get your feet wet that way.
Well, and the reason I brought up the ETF is because I was listening again to some people talking, and I think that they have now over 45 that are trying to get through the system right now. So as you're talking about this, and that's why, you know, again, this is for new people getting into the market. But when you hear about an ETF, as Jim mentioned, we had just one almost a year ago at this time. And now there are, you know, almost 4 dozen that are coming through the system. And so that's what I want people to be realizing, that, you know, even though we've been around and this has been happening, you know, since 2008, I think Bitcoin came on the scene, and this is 2025, that we still have a lot of room for growth with what we're doing in this space for the next 2 to 4 years, you know, where we're going to maybe still get these 20, 30, 100 X's, right? Am I, you know, again, not financial advice, but the last 5 years, okay, what I've seen, and everybody can go and look at CoinMarketCap and pull 10 coins and go look and see what some of them have done, okay, because I personally have had some that have 40x'd. So if that was $1,000, it was then $40,000. So I've had those experiences myself. So I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. But I just want people to realize that when things like this, major things like that are happening in this space, that Bitcoin's not going to go away. You know, I was like, I had reached out to a few people last month when Bitcoin was down, and I'm like, are you buying? And they're like, no. And I'm like, it's on sale, and people get, oh my God, it's going away. It's never coming back. It's going to go away. And I'm just like, guys, when it started at 0 and it was maybe 77,000, and now we're back up to 87,000. And I think it was even higher in the last few days. It's just, I want people to realize, and if you're nervous about money, this is not the place for you. If you can kind of just let maybe a couple $100 roll and see if you've made your money back, pull out your investment and keep the other $200 going, or the $500 or the $5,000 or the $50,000, whatever it is. Pull out your investment so that you don't have to worry about it. What about the other item I wanted to have you share about is, what is a stable coin?
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to touch on that comment that you mentioned as well, that the volatility is a big thing. So that's something that I mentioned at the start, that you do see a lot of swings in crypto. So we can go up 20% in a day, which is amazing. We've had days as well, especially recently with even a large asset like Ethereum, where it's, you know, dropped by 12, 13%. So this is definitely not an asset class for the weak-minded. But again, it's something that if you're holding a long-term view and position of, you should really just continue to hold those assets for the long term. Again, if it goes up 20%, absolutely right. You know, have exit strategies in place. If you want to take some profits, we always recommend that. But it is, you just got to be conscious of that. This is a completely different asset class to the share space. So having that education, and again, being able to speak to a broker when something major is happening in the market is really valuable, because they'll keep you informed. If something decreases by 12%, there's a reason for that. Conversely, if something increases and by 15% as well, there's probably a reason for that. So staying informed and having that information at your fingertips is really valuable. A stable coin is essentially a way in which you can invest through things in the crypto space, but have it be denominated one for one in a local currency. So the best example I can give is we have USDC. USDC, in theory, again, I think USDC is more legitimate than, say, USDT. But what that essentially means is that stable coin is tied one for one to the US dollar. So let's just say you wanted to hold US dollars, but you want to hold it on chain because maybe you're waiting for the right time to enter the market. You could purchase USDC that is exactly tied. So it's just one for $1 to the US dollar. And then a lot of people will use that to then purchase crypto when the time is right. Or maybe they'll settle their business transactions on chain through using those stable coins. So stable coins is exactly what it means in the name, in that it'll never change from $1. So it'll always be denominated in $1 US. And that is ultimately what they're used for, is the day-to-day transactions. It allows people to do. So the example I always like to use is, in the past, I worked with a contractor and he was based out in Ukraine. This was a couple of years ago. And instead of me having to work with my bank to send Australian dollars, convert that into US dollars, get that sent to his Ukrainian bank, which I don't know how many fees would have been involved with that. In that process, I actually just bought USDC. So that's US denominated dollars on chain. And then I sent him that USDC. So it allows you to make purchases and use the asset of US dollars, but on chain. So it's not something like where if you would buy USDC that you're expecting it to go up in value. It's always going to be at a dollar. So it's used for transactions, but stablecoins are one of the biggest use cases in the crypto space. And the USDT is one of the largest companies in the world with how much US dollars they have under management, but they allow for people to use daily on the chain.
And another thing, I think what I would like people to realize is there are a lot of different cryptocurrency coins out there. And you don't have to be getting a whole bunch, I guess I want people to know. And I'll recommend what I think and see, as I did like 12, 13 events around cryptocurrency over the last 4 years. Okay. I traveled across the United States. We had cryptocurrency people talking about this. And so I've been around in the space a long time. But I just want people to realize I would stick in the top 100 cryptocurrencies right now, unless it's your brother or somebody that like it's your true brother, okay, that you have seen his portfolio, or you can kind of see, not that you're out there showing everybody, but that you trust, right? You have this knowledge about them. And it's not just somebody that you met off the street. Maybe stick in the top 100. And if you're just getting started, I would stick to 1, 2, 3. My daughters have 3. One daughter has 3 coins and another one has 4 coins. Okay. One has more money than the other one. And that's the way it happens. So they don't really manage it. I help them with it. But what do you recommend? And I have about a dozen coins and I've been in it for 5 years. I've had more, but it's a nightmare to manage that and to keep up on it. So when you're new and getting into the space, what do you recommend, Jim, or what does Caleb and Brown recommend? And this is just our own personal opinion, everybody.
Yes, I'd probably preface by saying it isn't financial advice. As a business, we certainly recommend exactly what you're saying, to focus on the majors, because they really dictate the movement of the entire market. So when I say the majors, I'm talking predominantly about Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, historically, in the last sort of year and a half, Ethereum's, I would say, been underperforming relative to how it's performed in previous cycles. So certainly Bitcoin is a great place to get started. It's the largest asset by far. It has a clear use case in the sense that people view it as digital gold. And it's, the leader of everything that happens and flows through in this space. And so there isn't as much diversification benefit like we see in the equity space when it comes to crypto. How the market usually turns is that Bitcoin will go on a really large run like we've seen. So, let's just say it's gone up to 108K. If we get into a proper bull market like we've seen in the last sort of 4 years, we'd probably see it move even further above that. And then what usually happens is after that really positive price action for Bitcoin, it starts to then flow on into the altcoins. So Ethereum, Solana, all the coins below it start to see beneficial movement off the back of Bitcoin. So if you're holding more than 15, 20 assets, one thing is it's very incredibly difficult to manage all of them and get an understanding of what each asset is doing. But even more importantly, there's not as much of that diversification benefit, because a lot of these altcoins will follow the lead of the major asset, which is Bitcoin. Even if you just have a quick look on, if you go on CoinGecko, you can look at how large the market caps are of every single asset. Bitcoin's market cap is far, far greater than the second, which would be Ethereum. So it's worth noting that it as an asset class leads the way. And so as a business, we very much recommend that our clients have exposure to Bitcoin. Now, we have a lot of clients that have exposure to a whole range of different utility coins, one of the larger ones being XRP, for example. So people have conviction in assets, and that's totally fine. And, we have a lot of assets out there that are doing some really interesting things. But certainly if you're looking for what I would say is the safest investment in the crypto space, Bitcoin is what you want to be holding. And as a business, that's our recommendation. I know that internally within our business, Bitcoin is probably seen as the most favorable asset to hold for the really long term.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, I mean, I'm not anxious for 10 more years to happen, but I'm excited just because, again, I've been in for 5 years and just seeing what's happened in that amount of time, and the people that I was talking to back then and still haven't necessarily maybe gotten in. And it just keeps the price down for me because I can still be buying cryptocurrency because that's always a favorable thing, right? But I want everybody to have an opportunity. Like, again, my daughters, 22 and 24, they have cryptocurrency. My aunt is 92. She was saying, Lori, should I be having some? And I'm like, if you have some free time, but I don't want you to stress about it right now. This is your later years. But it's for every type of person walking around. It's for my daughter's boyfriend for Christmas. I give him cryptocurrency. I'm like, I could go buy him a shirt, but like he's gonna maybe wear
No, that's a way better gift in my opinion.
I know. And then it gives us something to talk about. But I want people to realize. And so, Jim, I like to keep this kind of short and sweet, but is there anything else that you want to make sure and mention today for the person that's coming in new? Again, you guys, I've got my account, can't talk. There's a link here that I'm showing across the screen. You can go and sign up in an account today. That's a link it's my referral link. Jim was there to answer, God, I can't even talk, answer any of your questions. And, but is there some other couple things that you maybe want to hit on before we close up today, and just what you've been seeing this week or last week or this month that excites your team?
Oh, I mean, there's stuff happening every day that excites us. What I would say is probably back to that point around now that we've got more government support. So in the past, even in the Biden administration, we saw a lot of anti-crypto rhetoric come out of it. A lot of what the SEC was doing was trying to take a lot of crypto companies to court and really try and limit their operations and what they can do. So now that we're seeing more government support, we're going to see more funds flow into this space. We're going to get the PES developers now coming into this space. And so what that will ultimately lead to is new technology, new use cases. We're going to see more governments now probably start to employ their own strategic reserve. Now, currently, the US government is just holding Bitcoin that they already own, but certainly at some point they could release a mandate where they'll start to purchase Bitcoin, right? So that will really lead to pretty positive price action and a bit of a supply crunch. So there's so much happening on an institutional level that it's really interesting, and I think it's a great time to get involved if you'd like. All I would say is that, as you mentioned, that Laurie's got a link down below. If you're really unsure about this space or you're quite new to it, that's where a business like ours, again, I don't want to spook us too much, but that's where we really come to the forefront, because you can actually speak to someone about your own personal situation. No one client is going to be exactly the same. So you may have a very different risk profile to the next person. You may have a really different understanding of this space compared to the next person. So that's where you can sign up and create an account below. It's completely free to get started and speak to a broker. So it's not like you have to put any capital up front to get started. And just see if this is a space or a service that'd be right for you. You can call a broker. They will get to know you. They'll get to know your personal situation. And then if you want to get started and invest, we can certainly help with that as well. So that's all I would say. I'll leave my email, or we can have it in the link down below as well, if people want to reach out to me personally and ask any more questions. But certainly, there's ever been an easier or better time to get started. And Calvin Brown is certainly here to help you.
Well, and that's the thing is you can go to purchase cryptocurrency on like Coinbase, right? But you're not going to ever talk to pretty much anybody there. And what I like about you is it's almost the old fashioned way where you can go into an office, so to speak. You're in Australia and you have multiple offices, but we're not going in, but you can talk to somebody about this as opposed to just trying to wing it. And on our last video that I did with Jim, you guys, you can find it under my YouTube channel, is we walked through like what it looks like to set up an account and everything if you want to. It's really simple. So take a look at that video as well. But I appreciate your time so much, Jim. And let's get another one of these on the books and just keep moving along, because I know that it's going to take a few times for people to see these to really okay, it's time, you know, it's kind of like deciding you want to go to a restaurant, and it's like, it might take 2 or 3 months, and you're going to go, okay, sweetie, I want to go to the restaurant this week. You know, it's kind of like that with crypto. Everybody's got a lot on their plate, but I just want people to know that it's never too late, and you can get started with just a little bit of money. And just, I want to see people be able to see those things grow. I mean, I was able to buy my daughter's new cars for Christmas, and that was just amazing. So I sold a little bit of my profits and licked my ice cream, and that's what this is all about for me, at least. So
yeah, it's just a way to get more financial freedom, right? It's an asset class that can increase in value. It's important to be informed though and educated on what you're investing in. But certainly we've seen, as you can see in the background, some significant returns. We imagine that support for crypto is only going to continue. And as you mentioned, we're behind the part now where, you know, Bitcoin's going away. Like those days are long gone. You know, governments are holding on balance sheets. You know, there's been more support for it. So it's here to stay. So certainly it's worth at least getting more informed about this space and investing if you're interested.
Well, and that was something, again, I was listening to somebody a couple weeks ago, and apparently Wisconsin is a state in the United States, and they hold over $350 million in Bitcoin. And the guy who is doing the video said that that's more than England holds. So a state is holding that, a state in America. I don't think it's going to be going anywhere anytime soon. And
no. And what you'll see is that England will lead, like, they'll see what the US are doing as the pioneer, and then they'll follow suit. And then Australia will start to follow suit. And, you know, we've already been talking about a strategic reserve here off the back of the US as well, right? So the US is leading the way right now. But when we start to see it from every single country, that's when you start to see significant adoption at a global level.
Well, in talking about that too, I mean, it always surprises me how much you and Sam know about the United States, because you live not in the United States. I know Sam and you guys are both in Australia. Or is he in London right now?
No, he's back in Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And so before we sign off, like, you help people all over the world, right? Like, I mean, you're a huge company. So, like, I think it might surprise people that you're not just in Australia and England and the United States, that you help clients all across the globe, all top types of walks of life.
Yeah, I mean, we've got clients in probably over 100 countries. What I would say is that, yeah, we're based in Australia and we're headquartered here, but anywhere from 70 to 80% of our clients are US based. So we're predominantly a US business. We're out also, I probably can't reveal too much at this stage, but in the process of opening up a US office as well. So we understand that we're Australian, but a lot of our clients are US based. I love the US. I've been a few times. I'm going in a couple months actually. But we understand the US is the place to be when it comes to crypto adoption. It's where all the largest businesses are coming out of as well. So it's pretty easy to follow a country and understand it like the US.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Where are you going to when you come to America?
I'll be in LA for a couple of days, and then we're actually sponsoring XRP Vegas, which is the biggest XRP event, well, in the world, I guess.
Yeah.
So I will be attending that. I will be sponsoring that event, and then I'll be heading to Florida and spending some time in Miami to visit some of our clients and some of my partners as well. So a quick 2-week trip, but I'm looking forward to it.
When is the XRP event in Vegas? Is that in May?
End of May. Yeah. So it's I think it's the 28th and 29th of May.
The Bitcoin event, right?
Just after the Bitcoin event. Okay.
All right. I'm going to be in New York, but maybe when you're in LA, I'll be able to swing up and see you. That'd be great. That'd be awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jim. I appreciate your time as always. Everybody, if you have any questions, just reach out, drop me a line on my website, or go to the link, sign up an account, and ask to talk to somebody. We're here to help. Okay. And it's great complimentary advice, not financial advice, but just you're here, you want to learn a little bit, right? So
thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Jim.